They must need an interpreter.
That's right, especially if you're in the Midwest. We won't go there.
All right. Welcome to Talking Shop. We've got a great little text today, Matthew 22, 34 to 46. The mega super commandment.
Mega.
And then Jesus adds more. And then questions about who he is. Right, Ernie?
Yeah.
There we go. We'll get
I don't
after
think
it.
you got it, but we'll figure it out.
Leave away, spit out my Lord in every way. Yet I'm still welcome in the arms of the King.
That's not nice at all. What are you talking about? All right, Matthew 22, beginning at verse 34.
You all can join us sometime.
Yeah. And so the Pharisees hear that Jesus silenced the Sadducees. That was about the resurrection, right?
Yeah. Pharisees are awfully happy about that.
How the books coming there, Ernie? You got a lot going on.
Got them all?
There,
You know
man.
which one's
A lot
which?
going on. So anyway, they got together, and one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question in order to test him. This hasn't worked out well for them in the past.
No.
But they figure, hey, maybe this time we'll get him, or we'll, I don't know, trap him or whatever. I don't know, whatever they're trying to do. But the question is fairly straightforward. What is the greatest commandment in the law?
Yeah.
Right? The biggest of them all.
Yeah. It's really weird for them to ask. I guess they're trying to figure out whether he's a Pharisee. There was no argument in his day about what the greatest commandment is. There's really no argument in our day about what the greatest commandment is.
Yeah.
But, so,
And,
yeah.
and like, why? Like,
Well,
why would you want to know?
So, for the Pharisees, they're the ones who argue over which commandments are greater and all that kind of stuff,
Okay.
right? This is your argument of, why do your disciples work on the Sabbath, right? Why are they? So you did have different camps of the Pharisees. So I think some of it is them trying to place him within their ranks.
Is it like understanding the greatest commandment then is like an overarching principle that's going to play out in other ways?
Right.
That kind of thing?
Yeah. So
Okay.
for instance, the way that the study that I've done, there were two camps, or two big camps, one based in Jerusalem, one based in the Galilee at the time. One was Shammai, who was based in Jerusalem, and one was Hillel, who happens to be the father of Gamaliel, who was
St.
Paul's
That's right.
teacher. And Hillel's second greatest commandment was love your neighbor as yourself. Shammai's second greatest commandment was remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. And so depending on where you rank that, if love your neighbor is higher than Sabbath, then obviously that's going to change what you're capable of doing on the Sabbath.
Absolutely.
Versus the other side. So
okay.
So they're trying to figure out kind of where they, again, all of this has been, where can we pigeonhole him? How can we define this guy?
Right.
And so,
Which is, that's actually a great overarching thing in the context here. If the question about the commandment is to try to define him, because his immediate after response to that is, who do you say the Christ is? So it's
Right.
a defining or clarifying thing. So that context, it really does help understand kind of this conversation. So the greatest commandment is what, Ernie? You don't need.
It's not on your phone.
Oh, sorry.
Ernie.
It's not.
What is the greatest commandment?
Hey, we're at Talking Shop here.
Yes, right.
Oh wait, where are we?
He evidently,
Sometimes you just gotta laugh in life, you know?
he evidently didn't get the books
Guys,
figured out.
pastors, you know what I'm talking about, right?
You still working on all those books? You got 3 books.
Yeah, you know. Yeah. Yeah, love God and love neighbor. 2 tables, right? Is that what we're talking about here?
Well, we were sort of, but
Yeah.
he actually asked a question.
Yeah. What is
So,
the greatest commandment?
what's the greatest
He says
commandment?
what? Love the Lord your God.
Yes, with all your corazón.
And
Your mind, dianoia, right? And your soul, your spirit. That's right.
Right. Our heart, soul, and mind. And then he says this is the first, the greatest, the biggest.
The great Shema, by the way, Deuteronomy chapter 6.
That's right.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one, right? And then the second, he adds, and goes to what Matt was talking about earlier, to love your neighbor is how most English translations have it, right? As yourself. And it was, when we were working on the text, it was interesting. It's not like the word for neighbor. It's the one near you.
Yeah. It's interesting that that quote comes from Leviticus chapter 19. And in Leviticus chapter 19, the context is for the sojourner, for the least among you. It's you shall not glean your fields all the way to the end.
Allow,
it's you shouldn't allow. And then it ends with the quote in verse 18, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. So that's the context of what he's talking about here.
So it's those within your proximity, those that God has, and that was we were talking a bit about that it's God has brought people around you, right, and you're to love them as yourself. You know, it's not just a fluke, right, and it doesn't mean you're not in some way obligated to love them either. Right? So this goes to what Ernie threw out there to throw us all off course. In verse 40, it says, these commandments depend all the law and the prophets. And they are the first and second what? Come on, Ernie, you got it.
You did it.
You did it. Bring it out. The first and second tables of the
law?
the blank.
Fill in the blank, yeah. Good teacher trick there.
Mad libs.
Yeah.
Remember those?
Yeah. So,
yeah.
What do you mean by that first and second table of the law?
Yeah. 1 and 3, 4 to 10. You know, I think I think in a sense of, at the end of the day, this is what we're called to do, yet I think the law shows us at the end of the day what shows us our sin, right? But also, I think third use of the law, it shows us how to, as Christians, as covered in the blood of Christ, love and serve our neighbor in the vocation, close proximity of what God has called us to do. So I think it really has a two-edged sword there in a sense of showing us our sin, but yet at the same time showing us as forgiven sinners, as those covered by his blood, baptized into Christ, to love and serve in a joyous way for those that God has assigned for us.
You're getting nervous, Ernie.
It's kind of like he's running out of steam or something.
Yeah, it
Something
was.
like that.
Doing
So
good.
I think
You're doing good.
He was wondering if we were going to let him off the hook. I think that's what it was.
say something, please.
No.
But I think that's the focus there. And again, it's First Commandment stuff, right? Everything as we know in the Catechism, all this stuff.
So
everything flows.
The
from
first table of the law focuses primarily on what?
God.
Right, our relationship with God, or His relationship with us, or however you want to do it.
Vertical.
And you said 1 through 3, and that's if you're a Lutheran or a Catholic. For everyone else, it'd be 1 through 4, right? That's fine. Look it up if you don't. You should know. But and then you said 4 through 10. The second table focus on what?
Neighbor.
Our neighbor, those in proximity to us.
Yes.
Right, and those things, but your overarching thing was like, this is calling us both, how we stand before God and how we interact. It was like a latent like you were like rebooting or something, and so it's how we relate with our Father in heaven, and then how we live our lives amongst each other.
Yeah.
So vertical, horizontal, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yep.
So there you go. So he's asked, what's the greatest? He says, I'll tell you not only the greatest, I'll do you one better. I'll tell you the second greatest, and then I'll tell you that this is everything. Everything hangs here.
Yeah. In essence, Jesus gives us his hermeneutical lens, right? I mean, you want to know how to read the scriptures.
Yeah.
This is how you read them. On these 2 commandments at the top, everything else depends. And so if you're not reading the the scriptures, and in this case the Old Testament, in terms of love God, love neighbor, you're missing it. You're missing the point.
Yeah.
So
Right. Now, this moves us into the second. So he's done that where I really liked what you had to say there, Matt, that this is them trying to understand who he is. Right?
Yeah.
He gives them this great clarifying thing, but they still want to know, what camp do you fall in? How am I going to place you?
yeah,
Which leads right into the second part then. As they're gathered together, Jesus now asks them a question, right? So then he turns it back on them. And the question is straightforward. What do you think about the Christ? Which I always like to remind hearers of, like when I grew up in church, you would hear Jesus Christ. I thought that was his last name,
yeah.
right? It's not his name.
Mr.
It's
Christ.
It's a title.
Mr. Christ.
Mr. Christ.
Yeah, that it's his title, the Messiah, right?
Which means anointed.
The anointed one, right? And so he asks a question, what do you think about him? Whose son is he? Now, what's he getting at with this? Anyone? Bueller?
You want me to answer?
You could go.
It's complicated.
All right.
I think that's.
Ernie, you judge how complicated this is.
I think that's actually what he's getting at. Is that you're trying to simplify me as the Christ, and you're trying to say, oh, it's this, or it's this, or it's this. And what Jesus is going to do in this question is he's going to broaden it out and go, it's a both and.
Okay.
And so you want it to be this king. I'm telling you it's the suffering servant. You don't want it to be that. The reality is it's both, kind of thing. And so this is what he's getting at. But he's primarily going to come about it is he's been charged. He's charged a lot, and it's ultimately the charge that they will try to make stick in the Sanhedrin is blasphemy. He's a blasphemer, right?
Right.
And so this is an argument of saying, you're looking at this from a purely human standpoint, and I'm telling you there's more godly stuff going on here than you imagine. He's going to use a text from the Psalms to prove his point. So, Psalm 110.
Psalm 110.
So,
So
how'd I do, Ernie?
Yeah, you were supposed to critique that.
Great.
You didn't listen to a word I said, did you?
No, it was
What?
You didn't listen to a word I said,
I was
did you?
listening. Psalm 110.
So whose son is he? They say the son of David, and he's kind of like, yeah. So why does David say in the Spirit he calls him Lord? So David calls his own son in that regard.
Yeah.
His Lord.
And there was, if you go back and read Psalm 110, I should point this out because somebody pointed it out to me, that the Lord, the first Lord in that, even though it's in the Greek Kyrios, should be the name Yahweh. Right. So it's the name of God, which is always then translated Adonai in the Jewish Old Testament. And then to my Lord is the Adonai, the master. Right. So it's in essence God said to my master.
Right. Sit at my right hand.
Yeah.
Right. So I put this. So if David calls him Lord, how is he his son?
Yeah.
And this is that broadening of it out. Like you think you're going to define this so narrowly, and it's bigger. The coming of the Messiah. I mean, this is the incarnation, right? This is what you didn't expect.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
That this would be God in human flesh.
Yeah.
So he's both God. So he's David's Lord.
Yeah.
And he's the son of David.
Yeah. He's David's son, and yet greater than David. Right. And that's the side of it that's.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, when you think of family lines and lineage, you always go from greatest to least, or, from top to bottom. And in this hierarchy, it's actually reversed, which is always the profundity of that sounded smart, right? Profundity of the incarnation.
Really good, yeah.
I mean, if you would have left it, that would have.
No,
just say it.
But you said it. The incarnation is such a great part of that, where that is so profound. And likewise, connected to the incarnation would be this reality that how is he his son? And they were befuddled; they didn't know what to say.
Yeah. Well, or they were a little bit like John the Baptist, and we don't know, right? It's not that I don't think it's not that they're able to answer him. Let's see. It doesn't say they're not. Oh, there is dunamai
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
They didn't have the ability.
They didn't have the ability.
So, but I think part of it is too when you're so narrowly focused on who you think this guy is,
Yeah.
then when that profundity hits,
You like that word.
you're welcome. Yeah, I wouldn't have said it without you. So there you go.
That's right.
That they're kind of they have to take a step back,
Right.
and realize that maybe where they're thinking isn't.
Yeah.
Well, the radical nature of the incarnation is, and the gospel in itself is just,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's so profound.
I'm pretty sure. Is it Paul
Radical.
that even says, talking about kind of not just the incarnation? Well, he says it about Christ and His church, but just about the gospel in relation to bringing all the nations in. That even Paul is like mesmerized. He's like, I just could never have fathomed this thing.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think that's a good point about talking about a big part of it about the incarnation. I think we can talk about a lot about like the faithfulness of Christ in His life, and I don't know if we talk about that enough, but we all, of course, talk about the death and resurrection of Christ and all that, right? But that whole incarnation, right, that enfleshment, is so important.
It's a good opportunity to
Because I don't think we could all agree
to preach about and teach this, like the ramifications of the incarnation of God. I mean,
That's right.
This is where their mind's not getting it,
Yeah.
right? And
Because
this
lineage,
is everything.
based on logic, would be
and if
no.
you want to really blow their minds from our hermeneutic, the scriptures are all about Christ. There's not a single
They
point
are?
that can do it.
I didn't know that.
Which means that then embodied in this one man Jesus is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself.
Right, yeah.
Because on these hang the law and the prophets.
And
So-
here he is.
Yep, and here he is.
Yeah.
Good.
Man, it's good stuff. Check out craftofpreaching.com. Lots of good stuff there. And, of course, like, subscribe. Hit that little bell button, and you'll know when the new videos come up. We do have some videos that are coming up middle of the week. We did some joint work with Ringside out in St. Louis. We got some professors, some videos of that coming up, too. So there'll be some other things. So, our normal stuff will be up
Stay with
every
us.
week. We got some other goodies, too. So check it out. God bless your preaching.